Hey, how's it going? My name is Daniel J. Kim, and you are watching The Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press today. I'm happy to be joined by Daniel J. Kim. How's it going?
Hey, it's going great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, all things considered. I'm so glad that we were finally able to sit down and have this conversation. Of course, diving into Cobra Kai season 6. But before we get into the show and part two, what can you share about your background in the arts and what sparked that passion in you?
Yeah, I mean, before we get into it, I'm just really excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me. And I've seen a couple of your guys' interviews before. I was like, oh, I love how in-depth you guys get. You guys ask such thoughtful questions, and so I'm really excited to be here too. So thank you for the time. Yeah, my love start, start my relationship with the arts, goes pretty early. I attended an arts high school, called OSHA, Orange County School of the Arts. And I was already there, like starting to pursue an interest in acting and theater and film. And so that was a kind of an early love that kind of latched on, and through that I ended up getting to UCLA. But it kind of always had been around in the background, whether it's a small like community theater show when I was in like third grade or whatnot. But yeah, that's kind of the it was my love with acting started very early.
Was it something that your parents always encouraged for you?
Do you ask all the Korean Americans that? All the Asian Americans? You gotta ask. No, I think my parents were incredibly supportive. Early on, it was kind of like, oh, let's see him go explore what he wants to try, what he wants to do. Like he can do a little bit of violin, he can do a little bit of piano, he can do a little taekwondo. It started out as like, oh, let him explore whatever interest he has. And then we had the conversation. I was like, Mom, I want to make this a career, and I saw both of them go. Ooh. And that was a slightly different conversation. But actually I don't know if I've told this story yet, but one of the big like huge watershed moments for me was when I was a junior and I was auditioning for this program in the summer in San Diego. And my folks were kind of getting the inkling that I wanted to make it a career. And because of that, I had so a couple of things prepared, and they asked me to audition for them. My own mom and dad, they like sat me down in their living room, and they were like, "You do your audition for us." I went, okay. And so I did the audition, and they both kind of stood there, arms crossed, and they were nodding. They're like, "Yeah, go ahead and work on it for a week and bring it back." And so my parents made me do a callback for them before I was even doing my audition. So I did a second round. I got a coach, and I worked on it for a week. I came back and I did that monologue for them. And then my mom was crying and my dad was doing the like slow Asian dad nod. And I was like, oh, thank God. And since that moment, I kind of they've had full support of my career, and they've been nothing but amazing.
That's such a sweet moment, even though I know they were kind of hard on you going in, but it's
Yeah.
almost like that test, right? Where they want to say, are you serious about this? But I'm glad that it worked out and you have their full support now. And I know that you've had some other kind of odd jobs here and there. In addition to acting, was it like some kind of acting teacher? You were a Starbucks barista, is that true?
Yes. Whoa, that's crazy. Yes, I was a Starbucks barista for a while, like everybody. You gotta make ends meet somehow. And also I love coffee, so it works out.
How much free coffee did you consume while you worked there?
Oh, way too many. Like my lifespan has decreased by a margin that can't be quantified by the amount of like 4:30 a.m. coffee shots I was consuming. Yeah.
What's your go-to coffee order at
Ooh,
Starbucks?
I'm a simple guy. I'm like an Americano with like a little bit of oat milk. That's me. It's like an iced Americano, a little bit of oat milk, and I'm good.
I was gonna say I personally never worked there, but I know friends who have, and it's probably like you might have some PTSD from all those complicated drink orders that you're just like, I need to go for something simple.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's like I can't. I actually like when I smell like the simple syrup thing, I get like a Pavlovian response. Like I feel like I should be putting on a green apron and I should be clocking in. So yeah, no, for me, it's like just keep it simple. Give me my black coffee or my little bit of oat milk, and I'm good.
And glad to be out of that industry, at least for now.
Acting's not bad. Being on Cobra Kai, it's not too bad, is all I can say.
You did mention UCLA earlier, so we'll talk about that, where you studied the arts and theater. So
Yeah.
tell me about your training and what were some key lessons you took away from your time there?
Yeah, come on, go Bruins. We love it. Fight, fight, fight. Yeah, I love UCLA. Gosh, it's the most like beautiful campus, incredible people, some of like my most amazing memories, being in college. I think in terms of like art lessons, I guess some of them are like the artistic ones, right? Like you get your training and you learn like this technique and that technique, and you engage with a bunch of scene work and you read playwrights or films and see films that you've never seen before. But I think the most important things were the things that I learned like kind of outside of the classroom or one-on-one with my professors, where they're teaching me is like, hey, like on the job, you show up prepared, show up on time or early, right? And then just be pleasant to work with. Like though it's those like kind of life conversations, those like in the background kind of things that really shaped my time there. I think that I hold closely to myself as an actor and an artist in general. So yeah, but gosh, I love UCLA. It's amazing.
Is it always nice to go back to the campus, maybe walk around, see some
Oh yeah.
familiar faces?
Oh, come on, catching a game. Go, you gotta go. Familiar faces, I think a couple of my professors are still there, so that's really nice. And I was just messaging one of them last week, like, or a couple of weeks ago, Paul Wigar. But yeah, I love the campus. It's so good. It's like that sculpture garden, gorgeous. You can go there, open up a book, just like relax, hang out, take a nap. I don't know, go on a picnic date. It's the best campus to just walk in on. Yeah.
You were in an a cappella group as well.
Oh my God. How did you know that? That's crazy. Wow, okay. Yes, I was in a cappella group. I was in Bruin Harmony for like a quarter. It's like I love Bruin Harmony. They're such silly dudes. Yes, I was in a cappella group. It was very funny. We did like a five sauce song, 5 seconds of summer. How did you know that?
Deep dive research. You
Oh
said you
my
were
gosh.
only in for a semester though. How come not longer? Were you just like, this
Oh,
is a
I
time thing?
Yeah, it ended up being like a time thing. I had some productions I was working on, and I was doing Shakespeare at the time, and so I was like, if there's one thing that's got to go, it's like I'm sorry, dudes, but I ended up having to do that. But I have some great memories there. Yeah, those the Bruin Harmony guys are amazing.
We'll talk about theater, which you kind of mentioned productions. More recently, you starred as Jason in Are You Listening? This was back in August. So, how was that productions run and getting to work with the Actors Co-op Theater Company?
Oh my gosh, thank you for asking. Shout out to the Actors Co-op, who are just the loveliest people in the world. They have like a little theater in Hollywood, on a church campus, and it's gorgeous and it's beautiful. Um, I love those people. It was so nice to come off of Cobra Kai. And I think there's for every actor, there's a moment of like, oh my gosh, what's the next job? Or where do I go after this? Or what do I do? But I was really fortunate to discover the Actors Co-op and specifically Mary Lee Holland and Chloe, who brought me on, Chloe Babis. The two of them like spearheaded that production, this like tiny, intimate, beautiful story and wanted me to bumble my way through it. So I of course said yes, and it was such like a great breath of fresh air to land back in Los Angeles and do a small show for like a 99 seat house and do something that we loved. And it was a great like regrounding back at home after I landed.
I was gonna say with Chloe and Mary, they wore multiple hats during the production, so you can really kind of see what goes into something like that.
Yeah, I have no idea what that's like. I'm just an acting monkey. That's all. That's the one hat I got. I got one ball cap and I wear it every day and it's ratty and torn and it's wild, It says LA Dodgers on the front. But then they're putting on everything. They just, yeah, set design, sound design, production managing, stage managing. Yeah, it was truly a two-woman team and without the two of them, that show would not have gone on. So yeah, I admire the both of them so greatly.
What does the stage provide you with, and what do you like about performing through this medium?
That's such a good question. I think that, a lot of actors feel a kinship, a sweetness with the stage. I think, like one of the great benefits of film is that, you can kind of search for your moment within multiple takes. it's not like you're constrained to one singular moment in time. Like if you feel like it's like, I could have told that be better, you've always got maybe one or two more takes to try it, right? Or you can give kind of a palette of different choices, and then they can kind of find it in the edit. But I think theater is so wonderful because it's kind of the actor's playground, where TV might be the writer's playground and where film is the director's playground. I think theater is often the actor's playground. You have yourself and the stage, and you have your ensemble and your people, and you only have that time of 1 hour or 2 hours to tell this story, and it will be different every single time. I think there's something really magical about that. And for me, always as an actor, it's nice to kind of back in touch with my craft by doing it. It feels like I'm always coming back in and being resharpened by actors who are way better than me. And so I love being humbled and getting in that space and feeling like I'm like, okay, I'm back here to learn. So yeah, I love the theater.
And there's something so special about finding like different quirks in each, like, you mentioned each kind of run will be different, each night will be something new and a new experience.
You might forget something and someone has to save your ass, Like
And that's
it's
just
the
all
magic
part of
of
the
that.
process, right?
Yep, yep.
Prior to Cobra Kai, like which film or TV project had been the most significant in your career so far and why?
That's a really lovely question. I think I have two for kind of opposite spectrum reasons. I think the first is I was on Bel-Air. I was on Bel-Air, and it was kind of my first. I had a couple co-star roles up until that point, but that was the kind of the first co-star where it was slightly meatier, like narrative section that I got to be a part of. And I also got to play off of my friend from college, also UCLA, Ollie Sholatan, who's amazing as Carlton Banks in that series. And so for me, being able to kind of share the screen with him and share, that time on set together was really sweet and really fun. And to do it 2 seasons in a row, even for like little tiny portions of it, I was like, this is so great. So that was kind of like the last like stepping stone I think I had until before Cobra Kai. But before that, I did this tiny like, USC graduate thesis short film called Char. And it was a Korean American family piece. It was a generational trauma piece. And I think there's something about tapping into that story and into that kind of character, and specifically with the creators and the team behind that. My friend Jun Cho, who's a genius. It was just like I think that was one of the most narratively moving pieces and I just felt honored that I got to be a part of that story. So yeah, I hold that one really close to the heart.
I unfortunately haven't seen it, but I was reading a bit about it, and it's like about societal norms, masculinity, and there's something about men expressing emotions that, culturally, I'm sure that's something that you kind of, tap into that historic past, and it's interesting to kind of revisit those emotions and, like you mentioned, the generational trauma.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, not to make this the Asian American generational trauma talk. Yeah, I think one of the things that I really thank June for, I don't know if I've told him this, but one of the things I really thank him for and the story for is I think it made me understand my dad a little better. I think for all of us, I think we see it for us, like kids of immigrants or kids of like 1.5 generation, I think we see those stories in our parents and our grandparents. And sometimes we get removed from it. Sometimes we feel some of it. I know I certainly do. But I think being part of that story, I was like, oh, this feels like my dad and his father. And I got to pull from that a lot. And it was really sweet to both understand my dad and my grandpa. So I think that was the biggest gift of that film, outside of just how artistically moving it is.
You did taekwondo when you were younger. I know you kind of brought that up. Your parents enrolled you in this activity. What do you recall from those days, and what did you enjoy about martial arts?
I just remembered I did a lot of push-ups because we messed up a lot. And they always are like, get down and give us 10. And we're always like, well, but no, no, no. I got trained by, and I know I said this in the past, but the legendary Jimmy Kim, who's an Olympic champion, and it was amazing to be part of his dojang. And yeah, I did it. I trained it from when I was about 8 to 18, around 10 years or so, like 16, 18, and then kind of parted ways with it for a little bit, kind of had it on the back burner, and then rediscovered it. I think the best parts of it though is like it's like, being in part of a sports team early on. You learn like that camaraderie, the discipline. You kind of learn like how to tough it out when things get really hard. You also get to train together. And so there's a camaraderie built in and kind of like we can get through this together. And there's nothing quite like training for and then getting your black belt that makes you feel like, you know what, there's nothing else on earth that could be harder than this at, when I was 12 years old or however old I was when I got my first black belt. So yeah, it did a ton to kind of show me my resilience that I didn't know that I had, on top of being like a touchstone for my own culture, which was super, super sweet to have.
You were a second degree black belt, correct?
I am, yeah. I'm Ethan.
It's so nice when there's like an activity out there that you mentioned. It's not only like, the physical aspect, but it's very like kind of character building as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's why, like if I was a parent, I would put my kid in soccer, taekwondo, whatever it is. I think there's a real like, I don't know, you learn a kind of culture and a kind of like team spirit, discipline, those kind of like really like kind of firm, I guess, like values and character building values when doing sports. Regardless if it's like football or taekwondo. So and to have it be a martial art too is like it's cool to be like the kid at school who's like, oh, he can kick somebody.
Nobody
That always
mess with
helps.
you kind of thing.
I mean, there's a reason I got into taekwondo, is all I'll say.
We won't hash out the past there, but we will get into Cobra Kai. Of course, we are discussing spoilers for all those watching and listening, so please make sure you have watched up until the end of part two before continuing with just Yoon Do-Jin's personality. Like, what did you focus on in your portrayal with respect to everything from his voice, his mannerisms, to his physicality and movement?
Yeah, gosh. That guy, little stick up his bum guy. I love you. He's such a fun guy. I think there was a couple things that leapt off of the page to me, and things that I just kind of understood intuitively. The kind of rule following, the kind of like, he's kind of internalized, like, to be good in the system, you have to like be the highest achiever within it, stay within the dotted lines, and be the best within these firm constraints. And I think a lot of, Asian Americans can relate to that or understand that experience. And so for me, touching on that, that was like, oh, this feels like the core of who where Yoon starts. But it was fun to kind of build off of like where he goes from there. I think the first things that I thought of when it came to him was I kind of thought of like a tiger, weirdly enough. I don't do animal work like for every single character that I do, but there's something about him that I was like, there's like a fierceness in his eyes. There's kind of like this pride about him that I kind of felt was kind of tied to that. But most of all, I just took a look at the words, at the script, what he says, who he is, and he identifies himself as a leader, as kind of like the reason why, like the kind of like, both ahead of the class in terms of a skill level thing, and also as a leading and bringing everyone together type of a thing. But that's pretty challenged when he gets kicked in the face. So twice. So yeah, it was cool to see him kind of taken off his throne as his first moments. It's really fun to explore that.
You mentioned like a tiger, an animal. So when you're thinking about how he moved, was that like a bit of a workshop thing for you, or did it come very naturally?
Yeah, I think because so much of the show is told through stunts, a lot of it was told through just my own physicality doing taekwondo. I think I ended up playing with it more in part two, especially when it came to like just my energy and my general demeanor. But I think when it comes to the stunt work, I think it ended up just being in my bones and in the technique that I had learned. But I think there's a reason why it kind of matches up. I think the way that I do taekwondo is like pretty structured, and I think it looks very good. I did a lot of pumse when I was younger, which is like the forms, right? You do the forms competition. I did sparring too, but I went to nationals doing pumse, and just kind of talking with the other stunt guys. I think that really matched up with Yoon's style. He's kind of a little bit more structured, technically like perfect, you'd say. Whereas Brandon's got that kind of wild, like, kind of wild animal energy that kind of accelerates his fighting to that kind of competitive like crazy 1v1 level. Yeah. I think there's a cool like dichotomy if you just look at the two of us in our physicality.
It was a very nice contrast to have, these two characters because obviously they both come from the Korean dojang, but there's so many like differences amongst them that it's interesting to kind of pick them apart and obviously explore more in part two. With Yoon, can you share any details you created yourself or discussed with others as to his backstory and upbringing that we don't see on screen, but kind of helped inform and shape him?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I talked about a little bit with some of the writers, with Bob and with John, Josh, and Hayden. When we talked about him, it was very much the kind of the structure versus no structure, right? It's kind of order chaos, that kind of like little duality. I think we found that for me, what helped me kind of think about it was the one line about how my family has been in this dojang for generations, and that's kind of a pride point. So I kind of saw Yoon as this son of probably like a upper middle class, well-to-do family. Maybe they like work at Samsung or one of these like big companies, and he's kind of like next in line. Like taekwondo is the thing that they love to do, and that's what like disciplines their family. But he'd go off and he would go to college in like America or Europe or something, and then come back to Korea and do like the businessman thing. There was some of that we discussed about. Like he felt very on track for a very like structured, planned out kind of a life. But I think the interruption of Kwon coming in and kind of dethroning him challenged a lot of like who he is. And so the biggest thing that I kind of wanted to key into was part one, you see like the super structured, very like by the rules Yoon. Part two is like I think he's just a bit angrier, a bit raw, and I think and has a chip on his shoulder, something to prove in the fights. And I think that kind of shows up pretty clearly with his 607 fight, and I also with the 609 the multiple man brawl fight with Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai.
How do you think that plays into what his goals and core values are?
I think, oh, that's so interesting. I think the way I thought about it was like Yoon at his core, like he feels like a really serious-minded but good-natured young man who's just taken under the tutelage of an absolute storm, right? I think I like John Kreese is just like this hurricane, and Marty is amazing as John Kreese, and I think there's something about Kreese's character that he has this magnetic pull on people. He kind of has this way of bringing out the worst in people for the purposes of like aggression and combat. And even with a kid who'd probably be a good guy in an otherwise different dojang or situation, even for Yoon, he kind of pulls on that pride, that jealousy, that desire to prove himself. And I think because of that, he lost his head a little in that multi-man brawl. I think he would have been, had he been a little clearer minded, like an earlier version of him, right? Or maybe under the tutelage of someone like Daniel LaRusso or Johnny, he would have been able to be like, maybe I can tag out, I can give this to my team, right? Because that's as much of a win as doing it myself. But I think because he's under Kreese, it pulls out the selfishness of being like, no, I need to be the one to do it. And so obviously he gets outmatched by three other Miyagi-Dos.
We'll get into that moment later on in the interview because I thought that was such a like interesting scene. Obviously, for Yoon, it didn't go so well. But you mentioned, his family. Like, do you think Yoon has been training at Master Kim's dojang since he was a child? Like, what kind of reputation is he trying to uphold? And is it for himself, his family's name, maybe a mix of both?
Oh, definitely a mix of both. I think, it's always got to come back to family and it's never just about the self, right? It means like a little bit more, I'm sure his dad gave him firm talking to in between seasons. We don't see that scene, but I always imagine that there was kind of like, how dare you do this to our family kind of a thing, So yeah, I think there's a lot of that in Yoon. And yeah, for me it's exciting to see and kind of fill out those missing pieces to kind of color in the rest of the character.
What are his thoughts on the training style of Master Kim and Sensei Kim Dae-un? Because obviously, before Kreese comes into the picture, you know, Kreese brings in a more kind of ruthless attitude. But that being said, training with Master Kim, it is still very much like you have to win. So there is some of that already kind of implanted into him.
Mm. Yeah, I think one of the things that's kind of interesting is I think that like Grandmaster Kim Sun-young, and then Kim Ta-eun, their style is very much the Cobra Kai style, just without the like specific focus on a tournament. I think like Kreese, it's kind of like the long game as opposed to the short game. I think Kim Sun-young and Kim Ta-eun are creating this like really like firm legacy of these great fighters, great martial artists, who are also equally ruthless in their own right. Like they're carrying bags and they're doing like old traditional martial arts stuff. And so I think they're pretty badass and ruthless in their own way. I just think with Kreese, it's like he's so bent on revenge against Daniel and Johnny. He wants to use this team as his weapon. And I think that's why it gets so focused and so, like, I guess, ruthless in a way. But I mean, even if you saw on our belts, even before we ever put on that snake, it still says muchabi, which says merciless. So I think there is that kind of ethos to their dojang. And I think for, just to speak a little bit before about like what Yoon is like in that, even before Kreese came in, like he's always just serious-minded. I think he wanted to uphold his family's legacy. He wanted to both like make them proud, but I also think he took a lot of pride in being a leader and being a capable martial artist. So that's kind of his status quo that gets shaken up in coming into the show.
So he does wear the Geum baeji as the dojang's best student. How do you imagine he earned that right and praise? Like, was it years and years of kind of hard work and, like you mentioned, being very kind of disciplined?
I think so. I think he took the slow, long route. I think that's what makes it so upsetting that he loses it overnight. I imagine that, the Kun patch, right? The little gold badge that he has. I think he must have gotten it probably when he like leveled up to his black belt or a little after. I imagine there's other students in the class who had it and it's kind of like passed on from each person. But I think he probably did like all of the right things that you would think of, trained for X amount of time, like did all the like clean the tojang floors or outdoors, like he helped after hours or that's kind of the feeling that I get from him, that he was there from when he was like a small lad, maybe even training with his dad, right? Or watching his dad train and then going in himself. Yeah, and so when he loses it to this guy who's probably been only training for, he's been at the Dojang since he was, a little, but to see this upstart chaotic dude come in and take it from him when he's done all the right things, I'm sure it hurts.
It's definitely a hit to the pride, but
Yeah.
the nighttime fight scene so brutal to watch as Kwon took all that power, ripped the patch off of Yoon. How was that sequence to film and be a part of?
Oh my gosh, it's so fun. That episode was so great. Oh gosh, because that was Brandon, my first episode. We came in and that was our second day of filming. And Ralph was our director and he was amazing. Yeah, I remember that whole night. I think we shot that scene in I think 2 hours. It was a really lightning fast. Like we were running on adrenaline. I remember we were all like hopping around beforehand, like being like, let's go. And then we went into it and I don't know, fighting with those guys, that stunt team is so incredible. And like, Ken, Don, Tony, like everybody who forms the leadership and then the stunt team themselves, they gave us such great training with the short amount of time that we had. And there's something about being out there in 16 degrees, hyped up on adrenaline, wanting to tell this amazing moment because we knew it was going to be like a pretty iconic fight. It was cool to just bang it out in a couple of hours, and the fact that the fans love it as much as we do is such a nice thing, and I'm glad that people have responded so highly to Kwon's like uprising as the key student. I love it. I still look at that scene. I'm like, dang, we did a good job.
You did. It was so intense. And you said in another interview that Brandon just missed your head on one of the takes.
Yep. I think you can actually see it. I took a look. I think you can actually see his right leg. Like it actually hits my back. So I like it hits and then I comes over. Missed my head. Brandon, how could he? How could he? Dude, we were friends, man. Thought we were homies. No. It was super cool. It's good to come from something and have battle scars. It's kind of like a we did this thing together.
Rite of
Um,
passage.
yeah, and I know people we don't talk about it much, but it's everybody, there's blood, sweat, and tears in this season. Everybody took a hit or did a thing or everyone was in it and we all made sure that this thing got done regardless of how we felt And I think we can all pretty proudly say we're all proud of the result.
Do you think Yoon was surprised by Kwon's actions and brutality? Like, did Yoon fear severe injury or death in that moment?
Severe injury or death. I That's so interesting. I never thought about it like that. Maybe. Yeah, I can see it, looking up at that foot coming down on his head. He's like, maybe this is it. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think for him, one of the things I think he didn't expect was for Kwon to come back as much as he did. I think he always saw him as the troublemaker. Like he's never really going to be much of a threat. Like, yeah, he's talented, but he's never going to be the student, right? But I think he was definitely surprised when that happened. Yeah.
He knows Kwon, obviously. They've likely trained together for some period of time. So he maybe never just, like you mentioned, he kind of disregarded his capabilities as a fighter because he didn't kind of take him seriously.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think there's a little bit of that. It's like, when you see that one kid in class who's kind of like a troublemaker or whatever, and sometimes you discount them and you're like, oh, like, but then they turn out to have like an A+ on the test, and you're like, what the heck? Like, how are you this naturally talented? I
It's like
think
the hidden skills.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a little bit of that. I think there's always been a little bit of I imagine a rivalry even before the show started between the two of them, right? But I don't think Yoon ever took it to heart until he got dethroned. And then yeah, the rivalry became very real.
How do you think Yoon felt about his demotion and then, of course, having to be subject to Kreese's teachings now?
I feel great. Just like, yeah, oh, what this nice. I get a break, I just get to chill, go to McDonald's and hang out. I don't have to try so hard anymore. No, no, no. Yeah, there's a lot of shame, There's a lot of shame in getting your like, it's like that's my gold badge. That's my gold medal, and you robbed it from me. There's a little bit of that. But I do think, I think there's something about training with a team, as a part of like representing your country and then going to another country that I think like, even though there's tension among the team, I think there is like something about doing that and training for a singular purpose that kind of brings you together, regardless of how you feel about each other. You can hate each other all you want, but when it's you versus another team, you're like, this is us. I might hate this guy, but like we're part of the same team and we're gonna make sure we win. There's a little bit of that.
For sure. I definitely saw Yoon as being somewhat of like a team player, as someone who will kind of adapt to the circumstances that he is thrown into. And you mentioned Ralph Macchio being your director in part one. So how was that experience? I know you said he gave out hand warmers on set. So what were those interactions
Yeah.
like?
Oh my God. Yeah, that's my favorite part of Ralph. Like Ralph is he understands. He's one such a technically great director. And that was his first time directing, at least according to him. And he was amazing. But yeah, like the kind of guy that Ralph is, he's iconic as Daniel LaRusso, an amazing guy. But then on top of that, he's going around and handing out hand warmers to all the actors while we're, in our coats and in between takes. And that's the director. So I think that speaks to like the kind of generosity of spirit that he has. And I don't know, for me, and I know Brandon will attest to the same. I think like not just Ralph, but everybody, all of those, the old guard, like, Johnny and Ralph and even all the series regs, Tanner and Sholo and everybody, like they were so warm and kind and welcoming to us and really tried to make us feel a part of the family. And I'm forever grateful to them and to Ralph's leadership for that episode. To get introduced to the Karate Kid world through the Karate Kid is pretty exciting. Nothing like it.
Did you have any nerves like joining an established series and established cast 6 seasons in?
No, no, I never felt any nerves. What are you talking about? I felt so confident. I was like, yeah. No, I was crapping my pants. I was every day on set. I was like, pinch me. I was like, someone help. I felt yeah, the imposter syndrome was real. I felt real like, wow, like I can't believe I'm here. Like this is the dream. And that's the Karate Kid. Oh my God. There was a lot of that. Um, so many nerves. But I think, like I said, the whole cast was so welcoming that I think they were able to take that nervous energy that I had and really ground it pretty quickly because they, we were getting dinners together and hanging out and going thrift shopping and stuff. And you go like, okay, like we're all in this, we're all making this story, this TV show together. And there's something about that that was really, really sweet and help ground my fear.
Like turning all of that like nervous energy into something positive. And I'm glad that
Exactly.
everyone was so welcoming. And that's something that I've heard even with, someone like Dallas who came in like season 4, the same thing where you might deal with a bit of like imposter syndrome, but everyone's working together to tell this wonderful story. And you filmed your scenes in Atlanta, but how was
hmm
that forested set as a stand-in for the dojang in Korea? Like, how did the environment, the elements really add to that experience and getting into character?
I mean, it's cool. You can see our breath in those scenes, the and like if you look carefully at the little pond, there's real like ice kind of frosting it. It looks amazing. And we were in a beautiful botanical garden about like an hour and a half like away from the city. And I don't know, there's something about it. It's like even though we knew we were in Atlanta, because we were removed from the city, it was easy to kind of change where we were in our minds to be like, oh, we're in Korea training, in the boonies somewhere. And I think there was something about being there in like the frosted grass, doing the work that we were doing that it was really transportative. You didn't have to do any imagination work. It was all right there in front of you. So that was a really exciting first day. And yeah, it didn't take any work. I mean, it took a little work, but the elements sure made it easy.
It is revealed that Yoon is part of Cobra Kai's team at the Sekai Taikai. So, first off, can you expand upon his thoughts towards Tory joining their team, like her as both a person, but also her capabilities as a fighter?
Yeah, I mean, he's like, who's this girl? Who is she? We didn't train with this girl. She didn't come to Korea, you know? Like part of the fun reveal is that she joins the team as a late addition to become the captain. And part of episode 6 is Yoon and Kwon both being like, where is this girl who's our captain who we don't know? We haven't vetted her skills. We haven't trained with her for a long period of time. Like we don't know what she does. And I think part of the cool part of those early arcs, at least for within Cobra Kai, just the team, is seeing like the two of us and the team in general kind of doubt her ability, and then seeing her show up in such a badass way during that 607 platform fight, where she kicks out the girl's tooth, and Yoon gets a moment where he gets to look at the tooth and raise it in the air. I think that's really the moment where it felt like it's like, like we are a team, and I respect you and your skill as a fighter, and you're now part of us. And I said this before, but I think part of the kind of magic of that moment was it kind of also felt like that was the day where I felt like I was like, oh, okay, like I feel welcomed into this set as a part of this team. So while Yoon was kind of welcoming Tori into Korean Cobra Kai, I felt like Peyton and everybody in the Cobra Kai cast was welcoming Daniel into the Cobra Kai team. So that was really amazing. It kind of like a life mimicking, art.
I do want to touch on that platform elimination round in just a bit and how that was like to film. But with Yoon having Kwon and Tory as his team captains, like how do you think he's adapted to that in Barcelona? Like, is he obviously he might harbor a little bit of disappointment at the same time?
hmm Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, there's a little bit of that. There's some sideways glances, there's a little bombastic side eye happening a lot. If you can catch it if you take a look at Yoon, there's always a little bit of side eyeing, Kwon, sometimes Tori. But I think one of the cool things about the Sekai Taikai is it kind of was like before when we did the fight in 603, it was very much like, Kwon as a character standing against the rest of the team, and then he kind of kicks all their asses and then we move on. But I think being at the Sekai Taikai as a one cohesive unit, I think everyone's role kind of shines a little bit. I think you see Yoon being like, oh, this is why he's a really good team player on top of being a good martial artist. You see, Kwon be the wild card, the kind of on his own, like he'll go 1v100 and fight everybody. But Tori has this kind of innate leadership skill, and she rallies the team together. And so, yeah, it was really fun kind of discovering how we all kind of gelled as a complete unit, and it's cool to see that everyone had their own like slight niche or role within that team.
For sure. And I love seeing those dynamics. And it was in one of those rounds where it's almost like you and he does take instruction from Kwon. I'm sure he's not super happy about it, but it was like when Tory said, "You two take Axel and
Yeah,
I'll take Zara." And then Kwon
yeah.
says, "Okay, you go like high, I'll go low." So like he kind of has to be that team player in that moment.
Yeah, and he
Um,
gets my ass kicked. I'm the sacrificial lamb. I go in and he immediately slams me on the ground.
I know it
Come
was so
on,
quick. It was
man.
like he couldn't even barely put up any fight whatsoever.
Yeah, last time I hear from that guy. Last time I'm gonna take orders from that dude.
How fun was it to play off of Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do's opposing energies in episode 6? Like, what do you think Yoon thought about their students, seeing them? Oh, first off, I guess it was the end of episode 5 when they're kind of um we don't see Yoon, but he obviously would have
Mm.
been there staring at Miyagi-Do like the rest of them, but seeing them in the hotel lobby as well and what those first impressions were.
Yeah, I think the best way to sum it up is what Kwon says, I think. He's like, "Oh, like Team America." And he's like mocking them. I think no one really took at least in Cobra Kai took the Americans seriously. I think there's why there's that kind of, fun, playful banter between the two of them during the episode, which was like one of the highlights, by the way. Like one of my favorite moments was getting to like stare down Jacob as Hawk, where like Yoon and Hawk have their stare down before we face off in the ring. I thought that was super fun. Yeah, I don't know. Part of the fun Cobra Kai Miyagi-Do dynamic is Miyagi-Do is always, the good guys. They're always, kind of like we want to track with them through the story. But seeing all of us come in with the black cool jackets and the doing the hero walking in, it's nice to be like a bad guy. It's fun to be the antagonist and to see to have the intimidating factor, be able to mean mug a little bit as you're walking past. It was pretty fun, yeah.
Did you get to take those jackets home with you?
I wish. Oh my God. Frank, I'm begging you. If you have another one, brother, please. I love those. Those things are so cool. I think every single person in the cast, not even just the Cobra Kai students, I think every single person in the cast was like, "Can I have it? Can I please? It's so cool."
And they
I
only
I
had so many to go around, but
I
you're like, this is
know.
fitted. Come on, this is
Was it for
mine.
me? Yeah, one day, I hope to God one day I'll be able to get one. I'm sure within a year there'll be people will be making them. But oh God, I would love a jacket. They're so cool. He did such an amazing job with that, the back design of the Cobra. Oh, so cool.
Circling back to the platform elimination round, is there anything specific you remember and like how high up was that platform from the mats? Can you give a bit of insight into filming?
Yeah, I know like in the shots it looks like it's 30 feet off the ground and it looks awesome. It looks so cool. They CGI guys, they did an amazing job. Thank you so much, VFX artists. Yeah, no, they can't quite do that with actors. So anything that you see like the 20 feet up in the air is our amazing stunt doubles. Anything in those huge wide shots is our incredible stunt doubles. They went up on those platforms and they did that fight in that suspended ring and all that complicated choreography, getting kicked off into off the side. They did an amazing job and it looks so cool. For us, we got to do did the whole fight, all of us, but we were lowered onto the ground. So we got to do, it was just like it was a little bit raised. It was about like maybe 3 or 4 feet off the ground. And we got to do it in the ring, kind of shot around the outside. So anything like medium shot or closer is us. Yeah, gosh, that thing looks so cool. And seeing them like dive off, they did that for real. Like those stunt doubles, they were like they're getting kicked and they're throwing themselves off of the platform. It was like, oh my gosh, it looks so cool.
So sorry, when the stunt doubles were on the platform, how high up was it?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. I think maybe it was close to. Oh God, I don't know. Don't quote me. Maybe 12 feet plus. Yeah,
Brave, very brave.
yeah,
Yeah, it
very
was
brave.
really cool seeing, I mean, cool, but at the same time, seeing them tumble off, like they were
I
like
know.
flying off the platform. So, I
I
mean,
know.
high stakes competition there,
My
but someone
heroes.
had to do
True.
it.
Yeah, truly our heroes. And also a huge shout out to my stunt double, David EJ. He was amazing. He's the guy who trained me while we were on set. Oh, an amazing guy.
Tell me about Yoon picking up that tooth because I mean you mentioned it was such a nice moment for you personally, but it was like nasty. But you could see the joy that it brought him to be up there celebrating that victory with Tory.
Yeah, it was so fun. It was like having like a little WWE moment. You got to take her hand and be like, ah, but on top of it, I loved it narratively to be like the team is now accepting Tori as their captain and as an incredible fighter in her own right. And I think there's something about that that's like even though she's, from a different country, and even though that we haven't like trained with her, to be able to get like that kind of feeling of, okay, we can rely on her and our team member and our captain, I think is like a really sweet, small little moment embedded within that. And also, what a badass kicking out a tooth. And gosh, like she's so cool.
Tell me about the tag team challenge, Yoon versus the Binary Bros and Kenny. Briefly touched on it earlier, but how was that sequence to choreograph and film, including what Yoon was thinking out there?
Oh my gosh, so fun. Also, that setup is so cool. I don't know if it's an octagon, if it's a dodecagon, however many sides it is. It is so cool to have like this idea for like a tag team fight. And originally it was really cool because I remember the day that the stunt guys they came in and they were like, "Hey man, you're doing this fight." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Me?" They're like, "Yeah, you're doing it. You're doing the kind of like climactic fight like you and Hawk had that moment in 606 staring off each other and you kick him in the face, right? During the first Miyagi-Do Cobra Kai fight." And so now Hawk gets to win against you with the help of his binary brother and with Kenny. And that was such a beast to film. I think we had well over 50 beats, maybe close to 70. Beats are like every single individual section. And yeah, it was a fun, crazy, long day. Um, yeah, we shot that all in one day, and it was so fun because I just got to constantly swap dance partners. I got to be there against Johnny, and then be there against Jacob, and then be there against Dallas, and oh man, that was really really fun. But by the end of it, we were all going, all of us for sure. We were a little winded. As for what Yoon was thinking, I think initially during that section, because he's just kind of tag teaming between Johnny and Hawk, I think he felt pretty in control of the rhythm of the fight. I think, for the first half of that section, I think Yoon was like pretty in control. He knew what he was doing. He felt like he could definitely win a point either in transition or at least against one of those two. I think Hawk would have been a little harder to get that point in, but he felt like he could definitely do it with Johnny, with Dimitri. But as soon as Dallas comes in and they're doing that rapid switching, I think Yoon stayed in it just a tad too long. I think because of the chip on his shoulder and what he was thinking about, like wanting to prove himself in the ring again. I think he should have let go earlier, but he wanted to be the one to make the hero play, get the point, right, get Cobra Kai on the board and make sure they win. But instead, he gets overwhelmed by the three of them and their rapid switching. And I think by the time he's like, "Oh no, I need to get out," it's too late. Hawk kicks aside the arm and gets that awesome, awesome last moment on him. So yeah.
The disorientation that he felt out there, like you could see the confusion in your face. So I imagine like for you as an actor, well, you're really tired at this point as well, but he's kind of like spinning around.
Yeah.
You've seen part two already,
Yes, I have. I have.
so you're happy with the how it looks now.
Yeah, it came out pretty okay. I think it came out pretty okay.
So Kwon loses to Robbie. Later on, Cobra Kai is eliminated. What's funny is, Yoon and the others, they go to help Kwon up and they just, of course, get shoved aside by him. So what is Yoon feeling with that defeat? And is he placing blame on anyone, including on himself or Kwon?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty rough moment and a cool twist. It's not something you expect to see, the title name team take a loss that early and get eliminated, not even in the finals, And so, I think that's definitely a humbling moment for him again. I think yeah, I think he does blame himself a little bit. It's a little embarrassing and to feel like you let your team down. But I think at that moment, I think what I felt as Yoon in that moment was definitely like our captain is the anchor. Even if let's say, I get overwhelmed by three guys, that's three guys in a tag team fight. So I get it. But you need your captain to anchor you in that final moment. And then when he gets in the face by Robbie with that awesome side flying kick, I think Yoon is like, "Oh, how could you? I gave you my badge and this is what you do with it." So I think there's a little bit of fury, but at the end of the day, they're all eliminated. And so I think everyone kind of takes a little bit of bite of a humble pie as we're walking past the Miyagi-Dos, and they think that's it. That's it for them.
Little do they know, shortly
Hmm.
after, Cobra Kai obviously gets that second chance. So when Yoon heard that, like, what did that mean to him? And as they, progressed in the competition, as winning was in reach again, what did he hope to gain out of Cobra Kai becoming the Sekai Taikai champions?
First of all, Cobra Kai never dies. No matter what you can do, you can't keep them down. They just keep coming up. I think that, the Sekai Taikai is such an amazing, like, like set piece for the story and for all these teams. And I think narratively, just for Yoon, it's a moment for him to like win back the honor that he feels like he lost, his position, his status, to prove himself, right? Probably to his family too. Um, but I think one of the biggest thing is, if he is able to go do this, get this accolade, like he can take that on to wherever he goes next, college, overseas, whether he wants to open up a dojang later in life, it to be on the international stage and win is no small feat. And I think for him at the very least, he wants his badge back. But yeah, we'll see if I don't think he got it back in the way that he wanted.
Definitely shocking end there, but there's so much prestige with this competition, like you mentioned. So it really could open just so many doors for him, whether that is karate or elsewhere, like you mentioned, for
Mhm.
school. The dojo brawl, absolute chaos. How was that to film? Can you tell me a bit about the work and rehearsals that went into it, including in your specific fight scenes that we got to see on screen?
Yeah. Oh, those days were wild days, but they were so fun. We shot it within like the span of a week. Everything in episode like 9 and 10, the whole like tag team fight between Miyagi-Do, Cobra Kai, and the brawl we shot in a week, and it was a whirlwind. But and one of the best things was we got like plenty of rehearsal time with the stunt actors and with Ken and Don and Tony, who were kind of all showing us our different parts. And it was really crazy and amazing how they took this chaotic jigsaw puzzle and were able to fit each of these moments together. The things that they do, it's like a magic trick. Like the amount of work that goes into it is incredible. And so really those guys are the ones to be praised. But for me, like we get a really, really fun moment fighting between me, Brandon and I against Robbie. That was such a fun little section. And just to see like the chaos on the floor and all these beats broken down. And then that final moment with Brandon, with Kwon, oh my gosh. That was a real day on set to see, everyone to the side, like the C parts. It's just him in the middle. Yeah. It was incredible.
I imagine it was very emotional. So I want to ask, like, viewers don't see Yoon's reaction to Kwon's death, but what was his reaction to seeing his fallen teammate? Like, I imagine that you were there and they were filming. Unfortunately, we don't get a close up on your face, but what do you think was running through Yoon's mind?
Yeah, yeah, I know that moment is such like an iconic and tragic moment because it's the first time that I think a character has died in Cobra Kai, let alone like a kid, a student who dies. It's a pretty momentous event. Yeah, I think what you don't see on screen is actually Yoon is one of the people in that kind of forward circle, even though he's not on camera. And I remember on the day like I was there looking at Brandon, my friend in real life, and then Kwon, Yoon's rival, friend, comrade, friend of me. There's a lot of mixed emotion there. I think what you don't get to see is just, he wanted that badge and that place back through his own merit, through working hard, through proving himself in the ring against his rival. And I think he's robbed of that, and also loses a friend in the process. So it's pretty heartbreaking to have, someone who was like someone you looked up to, you wanted to compete against, someone you respected, and someone who even became friends with towards the later episodes, um, all of a sudden just be gone from your life. And so, yeah, wherever Yoon ends up in the next couple of episodes, or wherever, Team Korea ends up, it'll certainly be a huge wave that kind of spreads out from that event. Yeah, but for me on the day, I think there was something both sad and celebratory. It's like that was actually the last day of filming for both Brandon and I, and for Team Korea, that was our wrap day. And so it was emotional and it was exciting. And I remember, at the end, like, Brandon was given this amazing speech just about how honored and how amazed he was to like be in the show. And I felt like every bit of that, the honor and the excitement and just the thankfulness, the gratitude of being like a part of this story and this legacy is like, it was pretty magical. And yeah, we're gonna remember that day pretty fondly.
Yeah, that moment will not leave viewers' minds. Anytime, Sue, like you mentioned, like for it to happen to a kid character as well, like sometimes you forget the high stakes of the sport and the fighting going on. In your perspective, like did you consider the dangers of what they were facing with the unsanctioned fighting and with Kwon when he sees him, lying on the mat? Does it ever dawn on him that he could have had a hand in his own death just based on, what he knows about Kwon, knows his impulsiveness, his
Mm,
anger that maybe some others don't, like you haven't been privy to?
I think the biggest part of it is one, no one could expect that, right? I think no one even knew there was a knife in play until it fell on the floor and got lost among the shuffle, And so I think it comes to him as big of a shock as to anybody else. I don't think anyone thought that death was on the table as an option, right? But it was. And so I think for you, and I think the real biggest things is like the regret, of never being able to see like what his relationship would have been like with Kwon had that not happened, whether he would ever be able to prove himself with him. And it's also like the losing a friend too, losing a rival, losing a friend. That's a big loss because you share that connection of being like it's you v me. And sometimes that's harder than losing like, just a friend that you're close with, I think. There's something that's really shattering for him. And so yeah, that was definitely a shock and also so cool to explore.
Definitely. And it's so interesting what you said about, losing a rival is really similar to losing a friend because it's something that where you share the same kind of drive and passion and you've known someone for so long. So there's definitely like different elements into play there. What was your personal reaction when you found out about Kwon's fate to conclude episode 10? And did you like immediately speak with Brandon? Or I know that he said he was pulled aside and told about his character's arc, but like when did you find out in the process of filming?
Yeah, Brandon and I, we found out on the same couple of days. We were filming 603. We were filming in the forest in the botanical gardens for our first day of fighting. And Hayden, one of the show's creators, John, Josh, and Hayden pulled us aside and was telling us each of our story. It was hilarious though, because Hayden would pull Brandon and tell him part of the story, and then he pulled me aside and then tell me a little bit more. And so we were going back and forth between takes, trading notes. We're like, "Do you know what happens next in the story? Like, I heard this. Does this happen?" And we both found out while we were doing this, like, hey, like it ends up like this, like Kwon ends up dying at the end of this. And we were both like, oh my God. And I remember I turned to Brandon and I went, this is gonna be an iconic moment, man. Yeah. And so I just remembered we both felt the weight of how exciting and also how tragic that moment was gonna be. And I was like jazzed for him. I was like, dude, it's gonna be so sick. It's gonna be so cool.
To talk about like a death scene like that, but it's like the same reaction where it's just like it's so monumental and I think that everyone did such a phenomenal job handling it and can't wait to see obviously the impact of it heading into part three.
Yeah.
Which was your favorite scene in parts one and two that Yoon was not in? and why?
Oh, that's such a good question. Ooh, favorite scene that I was not in. Oh, man. I love all the binary bro like conversations. Like Jacob and Johnny are so funny. They're so hilarious on and off set. And like hearing their like banter back and forth, it just made me want to be in the room for all of their banter. Like that part is so incredible. Um, I think as an actor, I would have loved to have just been able to watch Peyton's work during 605. I thought her work was so lovely and so incredibly moving and so real. And I was like, oh my God. I was just in awe of her as a performer. On top of being a colleague. And I was like, dang, she's so good. But I think for Yoon, it would have been really fun. I think it'd been really fun to see if like, Yoon had been part of, the Miyagi-Do team. I would love to see like a fan fiction version where he like him like, like Kenny like just leaves, he goes off and or like Tory leaves Team Korea, goes off to America and then joins Team America. It would have been cool to see him, banter with him and be a part of that. I'd love to see that alternate universe.
I mean, you never know what could happen, but it's always really cool to see the camaraderie that obviously Miyagi-Do has built over the seasons, and of course you would want to be a part of that because it always seems to have some kind of positive influence on these students.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. Oh, and then I'll add as a side note, I would have loved to just been a fly on the wall for Chosen coming in drunk and yelling. And I would have loved to have seen that because Yuji's amazing. He's so funny. And he's incredible as Chosen. So I would have loved to have been there. That would have been so funny to just react to.
When he was pulling the potted plants, like the flowers off the table, it was so good. So it's too
So
bad that you couldn't
amazing.
have just snuck your way onto that into that ballroom set to kind of be witness to that.
I know. I wish.
Do you have a favorite moment or two from behind the scenes and working with this cast and crew, like offset when the cameras weren't rolling?
I mean, too many to count. Like there's so many things. We went and we did karaoke. We went to this amazing place in Atlanta called Dark Horse, and we did like some underground karaoke to a bunch of emo punk night music, and oh, that was so fun. And everyone's an amazing singer. I don't know if you know this. The Cobra Kai cast are incredible singers and incredible performers. So that was fun. It was like being at a live show. That was a great day. But I think on set, I don't know. Some of my favorite parts were just kind of those quiet in between moments where we would just talk, chat about life, do this and that, training together in the dojang all together, like being like one whole team, creating this thing. That was amazing. And then I got to play chess. I got to play a couple chess matches with Sholo and then with a couple of the crew members, Danny. We had like ongoing chess matches like every day. And that was a fun little highlight.
Were you a good chess player? Did you
Oh no,
win
I got my
any?
butt kicked. I got my butt. Shola Madalena is a good chess player, so
Maybe that's why he was encouraging everyone to play. He just wanted
I think
to beat
that's
all of
right.
you.
He was sandbagging at the beginning. He's like, I'm not that good. And then he just wanted to be like, "Tap, tap, tap."
Tell me
I
about
can.
the karaoke nights. Like, what was the go-to karaoke song?
Oh, I sang Fallout Boy, which was really fun. As what was the song? It was we're going down, down. Yeah, we're going sugar, we're going down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to do that one, which was really, really fun. That was a good time. Yeah, everyone did like a bunch of different stuff. I know Brandon did Vanessa Carlton, Thousand Miles. He did that like with one of our crew members, Jimmy, and the two of them killed it. They were amazing. God, yeah, everyone was performing that night. It was so fun. Jacob and Johnny did, I think they did I'm Just Ken from Barbie. So yeah, so good. It was an amazing night, so fun.
These are kind of the things that you remember as well, aside from just making the show that you kind of carry with you. And hopefully you can revisit that in the future, more kind of cast reunions and keeping in touch. I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about the fans before we wrap up the Cobra Kai portion. Like, what has the fan support meant to you so far, and what have you kind of been seeing online?
We have the most passionate fan base. I love seeing like like they make edits all the time, and they're constantly this character is gonna beat this character, and I don't know, I just love to see like how invested everyone gets into the story, and for me, like I just they've been so supportive and welcoming to like Team Korea and to Yoon. It's been amazing to receive that kind of love, and yeah, I have nothing but love for the fans. Love you guys. Mwah.
And you did get to go to the part one kind of premiere, so that was probably a really cool experience for you getting
Yeah.
to meet some fans in person.
Yeah, that was super exciting. And like what a cool night, to have all the fans be able to see like the first couple episodes alongside us. And that was the first time that I think that many of us, and I know myself, saw like the episodes for the season. So it was so cool to be there and to like celebrate that night together. And I was sitting near Brandon and just getting to catch up with him and talk to him about it, be like, dude, this is so, so cool. He was there with his dad, and oh my gosh, it was lovely. It was super super cool. And also everyone was getting dressed up. Everybody looked so hot, so attractive. It's like, dang, we're a good looking cast. So
More
that
red
part was
carpet
fun too.
events needed. Do you know if there's going to be anything for part two or
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That's for them to choose. But if they do, that'd be super cool. That'd be super
you'll be
exciting.
there?
I hope so. We'll see.
What can you say about your experiences as an Asian American artist, and how has your culture and heritage impacted your identity and career?
Oh my gosh, what a thoughtful and sweet question. I mean, as you can kind of tell, I think part of what is so wonderful about this character is that Yoon's Koreanness is just as much a part of his character as his martial arts, as his angst, as his, need to prove himself. And I think for me, it's like, just like Yoon, I think for me, it's like you can't help but be, who you are, what you are, where you came from, right? And for me, it's like that's such a sweet thing when I get to honor that in my roles. So whether I'm doing something like Char and it's like a generational family story, or something like this, where we get to honor martial arts and, speak Korean on screen and do all of that. I think there's something that's like really kind of healing and magical in a way where you get to take ownership of that part of yourself, and also try and represent well. All I want to do is to do that, to show up in a way that other members of my community can be proud of, can claim and say, hey, that's us, and because I know for every single time I get to see that, I go, that's me. But outside of that, I think, like being an Asian American artist is like, Sandra puts it best. It's an honor just to be Asian. And for us, it's like whether we create art, like we have such a unique and interesting time for storytelling. For us, we're really kind of figuring out the diversity of story that we can do as Asian Americans. And that there's so many different lenses, nuances, genres that we can be a part of. We can do absurdist like horror. We can do, like we can do like deep like family, like intimate films. We can do comedies, like there's so much going on, and it's really exciting time. And I can't wait to see, how the roadmap goes 5, 10 years from now. Excited to just keep doing more.
Definitely. And it's always so welcome just to also see that representation, young Asians out there maybe looking at being an artist and seeing, your face up there, and some of the Korean team in the Cobra Kai this season. Have you always, felt in touch with your roots growing up? Did you always speak Korean?
I did not actually. I think part of my story, to get a little personal, I think part of my story is that and I know a lot of Korean Americans feel this way. It's like sometimes there's a feeling of like, man, am I worthy enough, or am I Korean enough to claim my language and my culture and how my family raised me? I think there's a little bit of self-consciousness, or like a hope that we'll measure up to this Korean ideal. And I know I certainly felt that, and I one of the things I had to come to terms with was I was actually really nervous to speak Korean in the show. I think because I felt a little bit like I was like, I'm not like amazing at speaking it. I didn't often speak it. I spoke it a little at home when we were growing up, but yeah, I I hated Korean school growing up, and so. I think part of what's been actually really amazing about this show has been being able to do that, and do it okay. I think that's been really healing to be like, you know what, like I can claim this, and yeah, it's sweet. I hope to do it more. I hope to get better at it. I've been I've been learning more, and that's been sweet.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm glad that it could kind of heal a bit of, your past as well when you think about it. And it's always nice to, even if you felt like you weren't so connected before, reconnecting with your culture, and there's never like a wrong time to do that. How do you stay passionate about the arts and your craft?
Oh, that's I don't know. I just do. I don't know. I love my job. Uh, I think I don't know. I think how I stay passionate is I really love the people that I get to meet and work with. I think that's one of my favorite things about being an artist and being an actor is you meet amazing, interesting, obscenely talented and intelligent people all the time. And I think that's really life-giving for me to see people at the top of their game or people who love the work they're doing, who are all going after this thing together. I think that's really inspiring for me. And so seeing other people, and meeting them is so invigorating. Um, and then on top of that, it's just like it's consuming a lot of really good art too. Things that keep you motivated and excited. Seeing something like Beef, seeing something, like Andrew On's films like Fire Island, right? Or whatever it would be, or even like, fun other things. Like my recent like obsession is Culinary Class Wars, the cooking show. I love that. And I also just watched like Legend of Vox Machina, the animated show. And like regardless of where it is, I think like storytelling is so embedded into human DNA. We just crave it, we just love it. And I don't know, for me, it's like watching all of it, just that keeps me passionate.
Speaking of like Asian-led content, it was Shogun that did really well as
I
well
know. It's
recently.
incredible. Like well deserved the million Emmy nominations that it that it received and wins. It's so exciting. It's a really exciting time for Asian American storytelling, for Asian storytelling in general. And I think it's so cool that it's like we are in a time where all of these stories can coexist, and it doesn't matter, whatever story, Asian American story, Asian story, white story, black story, there's like space for all of it because like we just share that human experience and we can all relate, regardless of who you are. And I think that's such an exciting time to have so many more kinds of stories just constantly being made.
There was something that you said in a podcast back in 2022 that I couldn't memorize. So I had to write this down. But you were talking about your philosophy for the art of play. So you said it was like feeding the wonder, fighting the cynicism, feeling the present moment, forging the space and time to continue playing. So I thought that was just so like profound and philosophical and great words to kind of live by and stay motivated.
Chloe, you're crazy. Chloe, you wild for that. Wow, thank you for diving as deep as you did. My friend Town would be very happy that you just said that. That that was Bamboo and Glass, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love them. Town is a great friend of mine. Um, that is so lovely of you to have heard that. Yeah, I honestly we met on the set of Choi, and we were talking about like the art of play and how that's kind of lost on us. It's such a like a hustle culture, go culture, that like every minute of the day has to be productive, right? Otherwise, we are not measuring up to the capitalist system. And I think part of the thing that, I think many of us forget is that, like I think we forget that there was a young version of us that loved to play, do this or that, and that's the reason we wanted to do this job, do that career, go for this thing is because we initially conceived it as fun, as play. And so yeah, I think past me said it a lot more eloquently. But I think there's some wisdom in protecting your space for play, right? Approaching life with a kind of perspective of lightness and play, especially in days and years like this. I think it's never to discount, I think, darkness or, the heavier parts of life or the things that require grieving. But I think remembering that there are still kids on a playground somewhere playing, and that was once us, is I think a really sweet um, thought that I have. That at any moment we can come back to the present moment, be grateful, and try to have fun with what we've been given. So I try to live by that.
Well, it was a great conversation between you, and it's available for people who want to listen as well. It was the Bamboo and Glass podcast. I think I listened to it on, it was like on the Apple kind of Apple
Ah,
platform. But yeah,
that's all.
it's
Also, what a great name for a podcast. So good.
what is up next for you? Like, do you have any upcoming projects that you can share?
Yeah, what is up? Yeah, there's been a lot of things. I mean, obviously I got the great chance to be part of Actors Co-op and Are You Listening? These days, I do a lot of like dubbing work and a lot of like K-dramas. So you might hear me as the English voice of your favorite K actor. Maybe a little Park Seo-joon in there, maybe a little bit An Hyo-sub. You might hear me a little here and there. But as for what comes next, I'm just as excited as you are. We'll have to see, but it'll definitely be exciting stuff. And you can also wait to see the third part of Cobra Kai. Part three is coming at you next year, 2025, and I'm excited to see that come as well.
You were part of a short film dinner murder mystery.
Yes, I was.
Can you share any more
Yeah, I
on
can. Yeah, the
that?
dinner's great. I mean, a little bit about the film. Gosh, there's a couple film festivals going on now. I have a maybe I should have said that, huh? Yeah, we're all professionals here. Yeah, I was part of Dinner, which is a super sweet, perfectly timed horror short film. It's about the horror of being at an awkward dinner party, which we can all attest to. It's exciting, it's hilarious, it's fun. It's very like the feel of it is very like what we do in the shadows kind of a thing. I love that. It's hilarious and so delightful. David Cherry directed it. That was so sweet. I think also there's Boy Band currently going on in film festivals right now, directed by Benedict Chu. It's a K-pop horror story that you can see it through line. And the last would be I had the chance to be in a film as a little tiny part of it, but a wonderful part of it called Paper Flowers, which is about the real life Shailin Shah, who was a man a USC graduate who died from cancer. But his story is like a beautiful message about the beauty of life in the midst of that. A really sweet romantic dramedy. Yeah, by Mahesh Pailor. So yeah, that one's also going around too. So yeah, those are the real things.
You're like it's great to kind of like,
Thank you for
look at
doing
these projects.
my background for me so that I know what I need to talk about.
You're like, what was I in again? No, but it's like sometimes you do film these projects a while ago, and it
Mhm.
does take a while for like let's say film festival runs and stuff like that. I know Boy Band's been in the works, and you've been to some events as well for that project. So it must be
Yeah.
so nice to like come together and reunite with some of the team who created them.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. It's great to see like all these projects like gain legs and go off and do the thing and have people see them and love them. It's a real gift.
I have one more question for your signature question. If you could be any ice cream flavor, which would you be and why?
Such a good question. I would love to be, right now, do you know Wanderlust? It's amazing. They have a little place. There's one place that's in Irvine. There's another place that's in Sawtell. It's a great little tiny ice cream creamery. But I think I'd be an ube right now. I think I'd be an ube, something a little sweet, a little earthy, you know? Yeah, something but it's not too sweet. Something sweet but not too sweet. A little earthy, a little grounded. Yeah, I'd be an ube.
Great flavor as well. And really, like, it tastes good in most things, in my opinion.
It I think so. I don't think I've ever had ube and been like, no. I think I've
Because
always
it
been like,
has
yeah,
like a
it's
bit of like
good.
that's both the savory and sweet elements to it.
Totally, totally.
Well, that was a fantastic way to end things off. Thank you so much, Daniel, for taking the time to chat. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chloe. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, and for all those watching, make sure to catch Daniel in Cobra Kai. Season 6, Part 2 is out on Netflix November 15th, and we will see you next time.
See you.